The first of our speakers on this topic is Dr. Annapurna Vancheswaran, and she's the Director of Sustainable Development Outreach and Coordinator for the Energy and Resource Institute Business Council for Sustainable Development in India, which is a part of the bigger Business Council for Sustainable Development internationally. So she's going to speak to this very topic, and I'd love you to make a very welcome to the stage. Please welcome Dr. Anna Vancheswaran.
Thank you, Ruben, and good afternoon to all of you. Let me begin by saying that when I was packing my bag, I only packed my heart. But when I came over here, I thought, where is my brains gone? Since morning, I have had to, whatever little I packed, I had to keep thinking that so much is going around in the world. Where are we? What are we to do? And how do we go forward? So with that, with little less luggage, traveling light, may I once again thank the organizers and Tim Forsman particularly for having given me the privilege and honor to be here in front of you, to be talking about what I feel about spatial data and sustainable development. And in my view, and the topic that we were given was, is sustainability a viable target? And of course, in my view, it is a non-negotiable target. From where we stand currently in the globe, there is no way that we can think of anything but sustainable growth, sustainable development in everything or every facet of work that we do, including the spatial data and the work that has been done. So my presentation is going to be a little grounded. I'm on ground zero at the moment, where my country, India, is, but it is, of course, going forward and wanting to do things which the world wants us to do and which the world is doing themselves. So let me tell you why it is non-negotiable, and it's going to be figurative. Let me make it figurative. We've got two young friends here with us who are going to be leaders of tomorrow, and we need to let them understand what this is. So we have the map of the world, and this is where I come from, which is India, and from New Delhi. And we are at the moment in Australia. And of course, we are here in a city, which is, of course, one of the smart cities. And if you were to look at the other click, you hardly get to see or notice another gray patch. Which is the gray patch? Can I have my young friends tell me which is the other gray patch that you get to see? Okay, if you would look at it, Australia is 2.3 times India. But this little gray patch, where can I get my... Yes, this is the gray patch, which is just close to both of us. It is the Maldives Island. Then Maldives Island is an archipelago with 1,160 islands. Only 200 of them are being inhabited. And they are coral islands, very important for the world. They have a lot of things that can affect the world, impact the world, but they themselves are getting impacted by what we do. And I would like to go back to show you not what we say, but what the world says. Did we get it right?
Lead polar ice researcher said, quote, "This is really happening. There's nothing to stop it now."
Florida officials are now predicting that the sea level will rise at an alarming rate.
It's easy to see why Maldivians are worried about climate change. With alarming predictions of global sea level rise, the Maldives could be in deep trouble very soon.
So, you see why we are talking about Maldives. We are in Brisbane, which is 20 times bigger than the archipelago, the group of islands. The low island states, 19 in the Atlantic Ocean, 16 in the Pacific Ocean, and 4 in the Indian Ocean, want to be heard. As the Seychelles Deputy Prime Minister once said, that we believe that we are the sentinels of this planet. quote closed, our actions, the actions of the globe, will impact them directly. So hence, ladies and gentlemen, sustainability is a non-negotiable word. We need to embed it in everything that we do. I was looking at the abstract that had been received, and Dr. Forsman talks about the pivotal principles, the abstract that we received in the paper. The 21st century raises a question, and this principles actually raise a question. There is a dilemma that I have here, and I thought I would share it with you. And we did have, of course, the lunch speaker who's going to be with us in the panel, and I would like to listen to him more. Peter, you talked about bringing the spatial data and information to the governments. And that is the most important aspect, I also feel, because information and action both are expensive as far as where we come from. And hence, we need to make information available, and accordingly, actions also made available, and those are expensive activities. Now, if you were to look at, I wanted to give you an example of two examples that I wanted to give you, which will be on Vizag or Vishakhapatnam. The way India is growing, India is on the map of the world. We have, of course, a Terminator kind of prime minister, Mr. Modi, who has been going across the world, but we do have our own issues with the government wanting to do things, but how do we go about it? And I hope that this conference has been an eye-opener, and I would like to go back to India and tell everyone as to so much of scope that India has, and we have been very good at IT technology, that we should be able to do a lot of work. However, I wanted to share with you that Vizag or Vishakhapatnam, which is a city in the southern east coast of India, a traditional farming or a fishing town, became a dream investment destination in the late 90s. With power and petrochemical plants that boosted of hosting the largest and the busiest business seaport in India. But in 2009, it gets a title of the most polluted city. When we do infrastructure, we normally decide for 100 years. Infrastructure is decided usually for 60 to 100 years. But when the port in 2009 started, unfortunately, we didn't have this information that should have been brought in. But climate scientists began their warning because this was a coastal city, one of the biggest and the best city that we were getting in India. In case the seawater gets warmer, there was a likelihood of increase in cyclonic events and its intensity on the east coast of India. One wondered what would happen if severe cyclone hits this dense infrastructure of Vizag, which was built with a lot of money. So a group of climate scientists and urban planners in Terry got together. The first tool that they developed was a spatial inventory vulnerable to climate risks. Next followed the inventorization of natural and man-made assets. Terry devised a smart database management system that guides the city authorities to gather specific data that alerts to its climate risks and prepares it to safeguarding its infrastructure. Now, the question was that by the time we got over to this, we could manage to get the government understand the criticality of the work that we have been doing only in about 2 years. It took us 2 years to get through the bureaucracy and to be able to talk to them about it. However, we held a conference on October 10th, 2014. The government was very pleased with what we had done, and we had given them the information that we could look at it. We had the capabilities, but now we had to build the capacity. However, the spatial data, which is something similar to yours, but I don't think it is as technically perfect, but we would be able to, Terry would be able to learn from this conference and a lot that I'm taking back home. But on October 11th, what a fate, that after we had the spatial data and everything, we had, sorry, the technology here. It was just 1 day after the government agreed.
This evening, cyclone Hudhud is gaining speed. The latest forecast is for landfall tomorrow. Winds gusting now up to 195 kilometers per hour. evacuations have begun in coastal Andhra Pradesh. Its impact is likely to be felt in the districts of Visakhapatnam, Vizianagaram and Srikakulam. Wind speeds gusting to 195 kilometers per hour moves in the direction of Andhra Pradesh and South Odisha. We ask, are we ready to face this potential disaster?
So this was a small clip from a television channel, and I pulled it out to show it to you that, sometimes it becomes very difficult that we have not taken the decisions at the right time, and to be able to use this information clinically and in the right manner, and it reaches the right hand. At lunch, I was speaking to some people, and we were talking about being in the clutches of short-term capitalism. What is it in it for me? What is it in it for you? How much of the data will be built in? And one of the other questions is that how we did talk about how secure is the data that we are looking at, and if one model has been built by one organization, how does the other organization view it, and can we all work? Can there be a collective action to sustainable development? The business community has learned and learned fast. They are now ending their 90 days reporting cycle and planning their business term further. I was wanting to bring in the business community, particularly to be able to bring the fact that they are important stakeholders in all that what we do. Because if you give me a chance to tell you that in 1995, India had attained its 50th independence. 1997, India was attaining its 50th anniversary. We had been freed by the British government in 1947. What did we do? We looked at our resources, natural resources, air, water, land, forest, and biodiversity. And we mapped it for the next 50 years, up to 2047. Whatever predictions that the Institute, Terry, did, all of them have come alive in those data 10 years ahead of time. So climate or the world is moving ahead of the data that is being produced. So there is a need for us to look at how we live and our lifestyles that we need to look at. So if you were to look at, I would like to quote Paul Polman, the chief of Unilever. We have aligned management incentives for a long term and invested heavily in R&D to build our pipeline of innovations. In addition, we have moved away from quarterly profit reporting since we do not operate on a 90-day cycle for advertising, marketing, or investment. Why do so for reporting? There was a discussion on the Sustainable Development Goals. Reporting would be a very important measure for all governments, and there would be a need for us to do this reporting with a long-term plan. And that's an important element. And it is that Unilever as a business has gained 35% of its market share just by reporting not the quarterly, but on a 3-yearly basis. I just wanted to also share with you that while we were talking about Maldives being affected because of too much of water, but that is seawater, but water needed to produce food. It's very important that when you're looking at also spatial data and looking at lifestyles of people, I wanted to show you that this is maize, which is grown across everywhere. It is also grown in India. This is paddy fields, which is, again, because of climate change, India may not be able to grow as much of paddy as it should because of climate problems. Maize needs 750 liters of water. 1,550 liters of water is required for a ton of these products. And if you're looking at beef, you need 10,000 liters of water. So this is the kind of lifestyles that we are looking at. Of course, this study does not imply one type of food is better than the other. This is a Cicero study, an Australian-based organization, and hence just bringing the facts together that lifestyle also makes a lot of difference in how we manage our planet. Emission from the food sector, if you would look at where India stands, of course, we have about 750 million people who do not have access to most of the resources that we should. It is only the 250, so we have to reach there. And I think it will be time when India moves in here the globe has to be bothered about, because we will be also using the same resources or the same climate that everyone else is using. And that could be that India and China will, that's where the issue comes in, that how do we look at our lifestyles and how do we go ahead with what we have with us. So since 2008, the National Geographic has ranked consumers in major countries, and this is the Green Index which I showed you, which is from the National Geographic. But ironically, and I hope spatial data and some of the stuff that we learned here today would be very useful for us in India, and how we can get the government to move on this is looking at the grains that we produce, even after being the most sustainable. Food wastage in India is the highest because we lack technology. We lack the way to find out where the food is and lack the way to transport it to markets. And it is ironical that it's 21st century and we are, I must say that, ashamed that this world has, again, these examples. An estimated 21 million tons of wheat rots is eaten by insects owing to inadequate storage and poor management. And this is equivalent to Australia's entire crop. So, the annual crop is there. We are going to have, just finally, I wanted to say that in international negotiations such as the one that will take place in Paris at the end of the year, there is the North versus South dialogue, where the debate is on greenhouse gas emissions of countries. The developed countries contribute to a major share of the emissions because of the advanced industrialization and lifestyles, while the developing countries are on the similar path of development, which I just told you. It's pivotal, then, that there is a consensus among nations at this global event. And I would like to end with Mahatma Gandhi's quote, "The future depends on what we do today." Thank you.